Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is Elephant in the Room, brought to you by Aiven. Elephant in the Room is a show where developers work together to build something, learn something, especially around the Postgres space, and address all of the elephants in the room that may pop up as we do so. I'm Jay Miller. I'm a staff product advocate for databases at Aiven. And this week, my guest is Alexis Roberson of LaunchDarkly. Alexis, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I feel like this is the third live stream, so I'm getting a feel for it now. I'm getting a rhythm.
Yeah, well, I think we had talked about that, like, kind of in like the planning of all of this was that I have definitely done probably I like on and off stream from time to time. Definitely not what I would call a professional streamer by any means, but this was kind of new territory for you. How was the overall experience of live streaming for you?
You know, I was definitely doing some reflecting, and I would say the first live stream, I was definitely nervous. And then I was like, oh, okay. Like, it helps to have like another person that you can actually talk to, and I like talk to the maze. The second stream, I could realize like, oh, I could easily, like, this could easily be, something like you have to have a plan too, like coming in.
Yeah.
But it's something that I also just enjoy kind of like the messiness of it a little bit. But it's still intimidating. I'm not gonna like, I don't know if I can be able to do it like myself, but it's intimidating for sure.
I think you could definitely do it. Like you said, I think having a plan first and foremost. Anytime you're streaming, more than anything, like you have an audience, so make sure like you
Hmm.
don't forget that you have an audience.
Yes.
But then also just developing while streaming is such a different thought process. And
Yeah.
in fact, one of the things that I've done recently is like in stream when I stream, I'm doing more planning than actually
Yeah.
writing code because it
Hmm.
allows the audience to be a little bit more involved. But that's what not what we're here for. But we can definitely talk about thoughts on streaming all day. We built an interesting project. In fact, it was one of those projects that like I was like, okay, this will be all right. This will be cool. And then by the time we were done with it, I was like, I am stunned at how
Yeah.
much fun,
Yeah.
how cool like building this dashboard was.
Yeah.
Um, and with that being said, let's walk through it a little bit. I'm gonna try to make sure I can do this without messing things up. I think I think the dashboard is running. It says it's connecting, so we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Uh-oh, it looks like I'm missing an ID. Um, can you share on your
It's
side though?
saying client side ID.
Yeah.
And I don't even think that that's necessary, but I'll send it. I'll send it.
Okay, send it to me and we'll talk a little bit more about like what we were trying to build in that process.
Yes.
So the idea was for those that don't know, LaunchDarkly. Why am I explaining this? Can you explain LaunchDarkly? Because I will do a terrible job. Can you give people kind of a 5,000 foot view of what LaunchDarkly is and does?
Yeah, I mean, I think you were doing a great job. Like, just started, like, LaunchDarkly, you got the name right. I think that was
Yeah.
great. Well, I will say that a lot of folks have known LaunchDarkly about like when it comes to feature flags and feature flag management, and we have done like that's been our bread and butter, and that is obviously what we still like champion and what we do. But we've also been able to add other steps to that. So we've been able to add like observability. We've been able to add AI configs, and this is to be able to add sort of like more options so that developers can be able to support developers from every step from delivering the feature, using feature flags, to being able to track the impact of those feature flags using observability, to then be able to track, how does AI, like how does, changing out different models that you're using for, AI agents or whatever AI systems that you're using. If you were to change those out, like how does that also impact your system? And so, feature flags, those are sort of like the pillars. It's feature flags, it's observability, it's also AI configs. And, added within that is experimentation, like how you're able to experiment with different outcomes. And so I look at LaunchDarkly as a full service sort of product, a feedback loop that helps you to be able to, make sure that you're shipping out things that your developers are using and that's also useful.
I love that you brought up kind of two words in there that I think about when I think of LaunchDarkly now, which is the observability side and the like experimentation side.
Yeah.
I think that that's one of the things that just in our roles, like we're both in developer relations, like I love the experimentation part of doing any of this, which is like, hey, what happens if? And the problem with what happens if in most cases is that if you don't have a way to capture or measure what's actually happening, then you're kind of just wasting time. So
Yeah.
there is this, concept of, well, hey, I want to do A/B testing, I want to do feature flags, I want to do these things. But the thing that was missing for me, just having not used LaunchDarkly that much before this experiment, was the observability side of it. Okay, let's see exactly like what we can get from doing these things. You've given me a client ID, so I'm going to paste that in. Do I need to put that in like an environment variable or
Yes. If
uh,
so, I guess the environment variable
I think I
didn't
see
show
it
up.
here.
Okay.
So
Yes, that's exactly right. And so I will say that we definitely focused on feature flags, and that is still what we do, but we have, diverted to observability and AI configs as a natural sort of progression.
yeah, the piece like in this, and again, like we're having a couple of technical difficulties on my end. Um, that I really enjoyed on this was we aimed to build an observability tool,
Yes.
and even seeing the amount of observability that goes into just like, okay, can I turn this feature on and off, can I turn this region on and off, and thinking about that. I mean, you had me in like bits, just like scrambled up trying to figure out like how could I use LaunchDarkly when interacting with Postgres directly. And like I think the answer that we kind of came up with is that like that's not really the way to think about it. The way to think about it is how can you basically set up different environments in which your users could interact with the database, and
Mm,
maybe it's adding or removing buttons and kind of going in that manner and seeing what
mhm.
happens.
Yeah.
I cannot seem to get this to load, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the config and I'm going to hard code that value in, because apparently it's looking for something that I don't have in here.
Okay. Let me make sure mine is running just in case if I need to switch, if we need to switch over.
I would say we're probably better off if we just we'll call it at this point, let you drive on the demo, because we're 10 minutes in. So I'll stop my share and I'll let you share. Um, the other thing that I wanted to talk about with this was just, I guess let's talk about the overall idea of the project, and we'll be able to show this to you in a second. Um, we kind of had three ideas for a project, and we let AI generate this, nice report on each of them, and talking about what the implementation steps would be, and we kind of came across this idea of working with read replicas in Postgres and managing that. The interesting part of read replicas is that uh, if you're working inside of a larger environment, you may want to not have the service, the database that's like where you're writing everything be blocked by your users actually like fetching that data. And one of the easier ways to solve that is to implement something called a read replica, which is basically just a read-only copy of the database in which you can set that for maybe your read operations, and then you can also do things like make it geographically diverse where depending on where a person is in the world, it's easier for them to, or they would connect to different databases. But you have the hassle of trying to keep all that information in sync. And luckily for us, like read replicas are pretty easy to do within Aiven. You just click a button and then you set up the config. But more than anything, you have the ability to then go and see what the actual differences are. Like, what are my latency differences? What does a load test look like from here if I fetch a bunch of resources? Like, I think what we did is we put a bunch of like baseball stats in there just to populate the database. And what was the load of trying to fetch a bunch of stats from each of these different databases? And they were all set up to be exactly the same, just different regions. But you could see how setting them up as different sizes, different hardware specs, like all of those things could play a difference in how you are managing them. Are we good to show this, or?
Yes. Can you see my screen? It should be the dashboard.
I'm seeing, I think the screen that I see is this screen as well.
Oh, okay. So it must be on this side. So
The
let
other
me
window.
bring this over. Okay.
There we
How
go.
about now? Okay.
There we go. Cool.
Got you. I thought you were
So
saying
this is what we wound up building. And this was like what, maybe we'll say like V3 of this.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
think like V1 was like the AI tailwind special. And then we tried some updates and it got better. It got significantly better. And then the last bit around, I just added some features on top of kind of what we already had, and we just went from there.
Yeah.
So let's start, I guess, in the demo of this. Like at the very top, we have our three different databases: US East, EU West, and Asia Pacific. I think
Yes.
all of these are AWS nodes. All of them are the exact same specs. And the thing that we wanted to see was like, can we just actively test these regions and get the latency and see what the difference was between these regions? And I think like if you hit test all regions, doesn't it just does a quick load test and grabs everything? Yeah.
Yes.
And naturally, this is querying from your location in the US. So obviously US East is going to be the fastest, but we can also see what that latency is, and see what it is comparative to the other regions.
Yeah.
And then I think we added some other features, we didn't. I don't think you got the features where the lines were added on the different regions. But we can see as here, you can do things like you can just test your connection. You can check the latency. You could even do a health check. And then once we did a health check, it would just add that information in and load some other stats.
Yeah. I think this is really, I mean, this was definitely it's different from what we started with. It's sort of beyond what I was thinking that we would have towards the end. So I think this is really cool.
The thing I liked about this was I've only been in the Postgres like space. I've used Postgres for a while, but I've only been like thinking about it beyond like I'm a developer. I need a database for about a year. And the common conversation in this is very much, hey, use PG stats, use PG stat statements, use PG stat statements. And I was like, I don't understand what I can get from using PG stat statements. And this showed just straight up like, there's a lot of information to be like dug into and explored by just hitting. It's literally just select star from PG stat statements, and then you get like all this information lined up for you.
Yeah. Now, did the PG stat statements, did they also structure the data also for you in this way?
Yeah, I mean, I
That's
think the only thing that I had to do outside of this was we made a view that
Mhm.
made that recent check history a little bit more performant.
Okay.
Because we didn't want to grab like everything from just select star. So we
Right.
were like, oh, grab like the last 10 of these and then like showcase them. That way they all pop up. But I mean, the query was quite literally like select star from PG stat statements,
Yeah.
where like the query is not like insufficient privilege or something like that, where it's not like a system thing happening.
Yeah.
And we could then see like what queries were being called the most. We could see what was the latency on those queries, what was the average load time that it took, and the average explain and analyze time for those queries. And I think in doing that, again, like our whole thought was like we were talking about building an observability tool. For us, we don't have that many like queries that we're calling, so it's kind of easy. But I could see
Mhm.
where um spoiler for some of the things that I've been playing around with for the last like week. I've been playing around with like some home lab stuff. If I have a bunch of databases running, or if I have a bunch of
Mhm.
services running on singular databases, I can come in and see like, oh, this command, this is the thing that I'm doing the most of. Or if I have a web app and my web app has, a bunch of CRUD config and a bunch of, like, oh, hey, go and create this or go, do this thing over here, like a company like
Uh-huh.
an Amazon or something like that,
Yeah.
they're going to see like, first of all, what's the busiest part of this? And then what's the most expensive part of this? And they'll be able to adjust their frequencies just based on that information alone. And I think that again, we kind of did this replica thing where all of these are the same size, but
Yeah.
if you change the resources in EUS and Asia Pacific, or if you have two US East nodes, one larger than the other, and then you're sending a certain amount of traffic to it using something like LaunchDarkly, that was
Mhm.
one of the things that we initially tried was like, hey, can I just change where these things are pointing to
Yeah.
using using some of the experimentation stuff.
Right. Toggling these different sort of flags on and off, and that sort of creates that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or it
we could
takes.
have two in US East of just
Yeah.
two different sizes. Send half of our traffic to the smaller one, half of our traffic to the larger one, and see
Mhm.
what the actual load is over time, and see
Yeah.
whether or not it's worth moving everybody over to that larger node or trying to further optimize down the road.
Yeah. And if we really wanted to even take this dashboard a step further, there is that being able to look at the data from like a granular level. So, being able to even like this dashboard here, like it looks great, but it's also like, okay, like could we like click on this and be able to see the health metrics or the traces like in a more sort of like
Mhm.
granular, view. That's also sort of like a next step of what we could add to this. But this is really great.
I'm sad because like the features that we added, y'all have to go check out the second live stream because there were a couple of features that we added that I think I never submitted the PR and I've already wiped them now because I was trying to get this ready.
Oh,
That's okay. That's
that's
okay. People,
okay. That's all right. That's all right. But do you like you have an idea of like what you did? I mean, the it's
yeah,
it's still there. So it's like if you wanted to add that,
we could add it
down the line,
back.
you could totally do that.
I think the coolest feature that we had was because we had those views that were loading all of those like some of the like common stats that we were looking at, we had those loaded into a view. We actually used that to build a chat bot.
Yes,
Every website's got to have a chat bot now.
has to
Um,
have one.
but
It's
we were able
mandatory.
to actually go in and say like, what is the most expensive query that's called on this server? And it could go and it could fetch that information for us and give us that information back in detail. And
Yeah.
to
So
me,
easy.
like
So
it was
useful.
so yeah, it was so easy to set that up with like just had like Olama running in the back end with like Gemini,
Mhm.
or I think it was Gemma 3.
Yes.
And it was just like, hey, use this. We're gonna ask a question. We just need you to fill out an answer and tell us where are we spending all of our resources. Um, what was the average load time over this span, this time period. And I think about that just from the perspective of like sometimes networking problems happen and they're not your fault. you know
Yeah.
US
Life
East
happens.
1 goes down, Cloudflare goes down,
Yes. I
something
mean, we've
like
seen
that.
a bunch of those outages happening at least multiple times this year alone.
Yeah. So being able to catch all those things and just see them, be observant of those things. I'm actually wanting to do more observability like projects. I'm looking into things like Prometheus. I'm looking into things just like building
Yes.
open telemetry collectors. I just
Grafana.
installed
Yeah.
like Fluent D on my home lab to consolidate all my logging and put them
Yeah.
into like a Postgres database, and then just visualizing that stuff with tools like DuckDB or ClickHouse to me
Yeah.
is super awesome. Or getting the wild hair to build your own dashboard, which is totally doable now with AI. Like it's really not
Literally.
hard. This was
Yeah.
built with Fast API, LaunchDarkly, and I think we used Chart.js and Leaflet.js for some of the
Mm.
the front end stuff,
Yeah.
and then vibe coded it over the span of like 4 hours. So that's just speaks to how easy it is to
It,
build it.
yeah, and it started off as just like a HTMX, just straightforward like dashboard and sort of grew from there.
Yeah. So let's talk. We've got like we're about halfway into the show. Let's talk about some of the elephants in the room.
Mhm.
My first one again, I'm gonna just say my first big elephant was LaunchDarkly and Postgres, and like I needed a sign that just says that's not how LaunchDarkly works, Jay. Like
Mhm.
that was me. Like the second I saw a feature, I was like, "Ooh, can you do it on this? Can you do it on this?" And it was like, I don't think you can. I don't think that's how that works.
Yeah.
Or at least maybe you're thinking about it from a different angle that LaunchDarkly isn't really designed to work with.
Yeah.
Um, what about you? Did you have any elephants in the room?
I think the biggest elephant for me was just kind of generally understanding like Postgres as a service, and yes, being able to like set up different like Postgres instances on like AWS or like all these other things, or like hosting them on like Docker and things like that. But to be able to just see how easy it is to get started with Postgres as a service, for me, like that was like the elephant in the room, because I kind of generally knew, about, what that could look like, but to actually see how well it integrates within a project, within a dashboard, that was something that now I can see myself using it a lot more. I will say that for sure.
Mm. I definitely think that the one of the conversations I've had with some folks that work on Postgres are how much they try to make what they call like sane defaults. They try to make it so that it's really easy for you to get started, get it out the door, and you don't have to fiddle around with it.
Yeah.
And I know some like other database tools, like usually like you can get it up and running, and then you're like, oh, if you need this, you need to enable this service, you need to enable these things. Um, I think we enabled. I don't think we actually used any. Um, I don't even think we used Postgres for this. I don't think we used any extensions. I think it was just like right out the box and just run with it.
Yeah. One of the things that I would like to see, because this is, like a local host example, or this is running locally, but I would like to see, how this would look with multiple users. How would like Postgres as a service like scale? Like, how would you optimize for like high traffic dashboards? That's kind of something that I would like to see for sure.
I think with The one that I always think about when I think of like very high traffic dashboards, it's silly, but it's like it's the holiday season. NORAD has like the Santa tracker that's running around, and you can like they simulate. Well, never. I'm not gonna say simulate because I don't know. Somebody might be watching this with their child, but
Oh, yeah.
you can see where in the world Santa Claus is flying around, and I can imagine like sites like that get little to no service during the year, and then on Christmas Eve it's like, okay, we gotta amp things up.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you said, just the overall load testing and how it can handle like burst instances of traffic. Like we see this all the time. The Super Bowl, I spend the first 20 minutes of the Super Bowl trying to figure out how I can watch the Super Bowl because every streaming service that hosts it is like over capacity and crashing. So like
Yeah.
being able to see this information and see it loaded, or see it running with multiple users in actual load. I think it would
Yeah.
also be interesting to see like how other people would test different pieces of this using the same site. What questions would they ask?
Yeah.
What are some similar thoughts they might have?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Go ahead. You had a
Well, I was going to say, I like the idea of the chatbot. I'm also thinking about how, because chatbots is typically, they live within whatever, dashboard or whatever, site they're on. But we do like the elephant in the room is the AI agents, and like how could we add specific like AI agents to this dashboard to where, if we see a certain like latency level, if we see a bottleneck, if we see, whatever,
mm,
error, how can it go to these different, like let's say it goes to LaunchDarkly, let's say it goes to your Postgres, as a service, right, platform, let's say it goes to these different things and it's actually able to make changes or updates so that it's able to, like, let's say you're getting high traffic, like the Santa tracker, it's
yeah.
able to sort of modulate based on the scenario using AI agents, or even just retrieving data. So that's also another thing that I can see happening here.
That was something that a friend of mine had talked about, of like just things
Mm,
that he wants to see from AI agents is like, if I have a database and my database is, hitting some threshold that would be an alert,
mhm.
email me, like tell me. Or if you see a pattern, like it's interesting. I have like my Prometheus service has like this pinging, like, hey, this is failing, and I'm like, there's nothing I can do about it. But give me advice. Tell me what I could
Yeah.
do. Tell me what's going to be the thing that solves this problem. Is it going to be increasing cloud services? Maybe I increase the CPU. Maybe I do something different. Giving me actionable insights is a thing that I want to see more and more companies do. Because
Mm,
I'm not gonna speak ill of any other company, but what I will say is a lot of what we see in like the AI like notifications and stuff like that is
mhm.
it'll just say these indexes need to be optimized, and that's it. And it's like I don't
It's so
control that
much.
index. Like I
Yeah.
don't, like there's nothing I can do about that. What else can I do?
Yeah.
And having that, but also having that as it's looking at something like PG stat statements and seeing it goes, well, really you're just calling this command a lot and the data is never changing on it. Like this, like you're not inserting any data, you're just reading from it. So maybe you could make this a materialized view where all the information is static, and then
Yeah.
now you're not actually like doing those calculations on the Postgres database every time it's ran. So it's going to be significantly faster. Like to
Yeah.
me, that's an actionable insight, but
Yeah.
that's not a thing that comes up often when you're looking at these. It's just like, oh, that index just needs to be, oh, you wrote this query like this, you should write it like this instead. And it's like true, but also like if I can get away from not having to call that query a million times a day, that's even
Mhm.
better.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It should be less work and not creating more work.
Yeah.
Another the thing that I kind of see as I'm looking at the map is what would be cool is you're seeing the regions like for like that we have these databases set up in. But what if we also had on the map different outages, like in real time, that's taking
Mm.
place for different service providers to see, like, if we're experiencing some type of impact, we can have like that explanation right there at a glance. So these are sort of like moonshot, ideas that I'm just throwing out there. But it's definitely a lot when I think about just observability as a whole. There is so many strides that's happening to make sure that it's keeping up with the times, or not keeping up with the times, but that it's evolving in the same way that other fields are, like AI and things like that. And one of the things that I'm loving more is that we're talking about AI adoption within observability. We're talking about how do we really measure ROI, and not just saying like, oh yeah, we're experiencing less errors in production. It's like, how do we actually measure that and have a dashboard that really encapsulates that experience?
Yeah, and I would love for you to show kind of how easy it was to maybe like modify this a little bit. I think you have like you created like a feature flag on the refresh button to just like, oh, just disable this and we can just run the refresh every like X seconds or whatever.
Yeah. So what I wanted to do, the goal was, and I could have done this on any of these features. I could have done it on the map feature. I could have, did it anywhere else. But I wanted to test out, the idea of what is like called like rage clicks. I'm not sure if you're like familiar with or heard of like rage clicks in that way, but it's essentially the user experience. If they're clicking a button, they're expecting something to happen. And on your side as a developer, if you notice that there's an uptick in that, then it's an indication that, okay, something must be wrong. So here I just simply like use cursor to like disable this button, and I created let me pull it into here, into this view. Grab this. So I created a feature flag. Let me see. What am I? Oh, grab the wrong thing. Okay, perfect. So I created a feature flag for the refresh button here. And so if I wanted to like toggle it on and off, I can do exactly that. Yeah, I can do exactly that. So like this is in production. So I would go here. There we go. Save the changes. And then if I hit refresh, I shouldn't be able to see, right? So the refresh button is gone, and then I can just toggle it back on because we'll need this for like setting up the like guarded rollout. So like hit production
And we were
again.
using this even in development, like
Mm-hmm.
disabling, you could disable like entire sections of like, okay,
Yes.
hey, let's get this out the way, focus on this
Yeah.
part. Get rid of different regions. I think at one point, like there were only like 2 regions that were showing up because like
Mm-hmm.
Asia Pacific was taking like 3-4 times as long to get any
Mm-hmm.
information. So we're like, just like hide that for now.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Especially if it's causing a problem for a subset of your users, you don't have to roll out that feature to all of your users. You can, roll back, or then, if it's working perfectly, then you can gradually roll it out to everyone else. And so that was kind of the idea here. And so for that feature flag, you can attach a guarded rollout to that. But before you can attach the guarded rollout, you definitely need to create the metric. And what the metric is going to do is going to set the threshold or define the threshold that's going to trigger the guarded rollout. And so, for instance, I created a test refresh button rage click metric. And basically, what it does is it counts or keeps track of the average amount of counts that the user clicks a button, where lower is better. So the less that they click it, that means that it's working. And the more that they click it, that means that it's not working as it should. And so this is created. So if we go to like flags, go back here and we hit edit, we can create a guarded rollout and attach that metric that is already in existence. And then if we did, let's say we didn't have a metric, we can always create a new metric. Make sure that it's set to the user context. We can set this to 5%, 10%. This is going to determine how often it cycles how often it cycles through to check for rage clicks. And then if it hits that threshold that we define, then it will automatically roll back to the previous version where, like, let's say the refresh button was actually working. And then I would set that to like 1 hour duration, and hit save, and we should be able to see it creating in real time. Perfect. So too, I want to mention, if you're using a client-side SDK, make sure that you toggle that on. If not, it won't work. And then if you go to, like, we can go to our project settings here. So it is, let's say, live demo. You want to make sure, go to observability settings. You want to make sure that for your rage clicks, that not only they're enabled, but then also too, for my metric, I wanted it to check that the minimum clicks is 5 for a duration of 2 seconds, and for a sort of like 8 pixel radius. So like if the user is clicking in this same area, more than 5 times for that amount of time, then that means that there's a problem. And so that's already set. So that's great. And then we can go back to our feature flag. And if we go to the monitoring tab, that's where it's going to showcase, different things happening within our feature flag. So we know that a guarded rollout was created. This is the flag history. So guarded rollout was created. We toggled the flag on and off. And then we're able to see how many times on average the user was clicking a button, like sort of like doing a session. So this was like more than 6, this was 16 times, so that's way more than 5. So that's an indication that like something is wrong. And so that was kind of like, it's very easy in my opinion to set this up. And this is just like the tip of the iceberg. It's the surface of what you could actually do for your dashboard or for like whatever feature that you're testing out.
Yeah, this is where my brain was just constantly like, but can we do it with this? Can we do it with this? Like, I think that there is, maybe this is my feature request for LaunchDarkly then, is like,
Yeah.
I want
Yes.
I want to connect that directly to the database. Like I want to
Okay.
see again, like how many times is this query being called, because this can be, again, this is an opportunity to optimize something. This is a place where things could be improved. What's the latency, or I guess what's the cost of some of these queries happening? I guess you can't measure the latency because that's all done, on the network layer. But just seeing things like LaunchDarkly be able to change things within my app, but also measure them not just from the application side, but measure them from like the internal side. Seems to be really cool. And again, like you have that like errors, logs, traces, kind of that open telemetry thing. It would be interesting to see, like, is there an open telemetry collector built in? But I kept wanting to ask, like, can we do this? Can we do this? Can we do this? And it was like, it's like, no, that's not what it is now. So.
Yeah, no, and that's really good. That's really good feedback that I can definitely share, because we're definitely looking to make improvements. But and like, you don't have to use LaunchDarkly, you can use whatever that works for you. But I just think that it's really cool how far things like this and solutions like this change, and seeing the connection between putting feature flags with observability. Like they actually go together real bad. And I think that more companies are, understanding that. So yeah.
I'm trying to think. There was one other piece that I was really interested in this project. Oh, I remember now. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but just the overall planning of these projects, of this project in particular, because this was the first time I had tried to do this. I am thoroughly impressed with what AI is capable of building.
Yes.
But I'm even more impressed of what it's able to plan and then build. And I think that like this is when we talk about like developers roles and things like that, I keep fighting with the like give me as much information as possible and allow me to give all that information to AI, to Gemini, who has like a really large context model, or Claude, who that's my preferred model.
Same.
um give it as much information as possible,
Hmm.
and then tell it to build a thing, and then just be
Yeah.
candid with it. Like
Yeah.
I feel bad because I think there was one moment where it like built a thing and I was like, that is ugly. And it was like, hold on, I'm sorry, let me fix that for you. And what it put together was like, I was like, much better. Like
Yeah.
this is significantly better. Um, but it was one of those things where it was like I didn't think it would be able to compartmentalize that's ugly and
Yeah.
then
Wait,
design.
do you like to compliment your AI? I kind of like to compliment, like, you like, great job. Like, I kind of like to compliment mine. I feel like
I
it.
did on that one because
Okay, okay.
I should have made it a memory. Like they have that like concept of, oh, you can do a memory and then from
Mm,
there it'll try to replicate that more often. But it
mm,
was, I feel like I don't give it compliments,
mm,
but if I'm struggling with something and it gets it right, then I compliment it. I'm like, okay, we've gone back and forth like 5 or 6 prompts on this and it's wrong. Just do this. It does it. I go, perfect. Like
yeah,
that's exactly what I needed. Good
yeah,
job. Now let's keep it moving. I think that was something that, like, even in this, and I don't think there's not any there wasn't any like specific issues on this. I was trying to find
yeah.
the planning doc that we made,
Hmm.
because honestly, just to show off the planning doc,
Yes.
it was so easy for us to, I think I said like save it as a PDF and then
Hmm.
from there just like present, and that worked so well. So let's see, I'm gonna have to bounce back and forth between windows here. So
Here, and
uh
I'll drop the. Did you want to share? I'll drop the link to the.
yeah, I can bring it up here. So like I again had no clue what we were going to be doing with this, but what I did know was that it was like, let's make this something worth looking at. And even
Hmm.
with it, it was like, give it a title, talk about the technology that we're using, talk about who's involved, talk about how we're going to do this. I caught so much hell with just this part. Like, give
Oh, the
me
visual.
give me the system architecture, but do it in Mermaid. Like, it did not know what to do with, like, stuff was all like, it was so close, and half the time like it wouldn't even render. But then when it finally rendered, it was like, okay, this is great, but it's hard to read. So let me just tweak it a little bit. And from there, we were able to, like, it was able to still build it out. But then even like, hey, let's check latency testing.
Hmm.
Like, why specifically are we using these technologies? I also want to throw out, I probably should have included Alpine JS in this because I think it would have made some of the stuff a little bit faster versus using
Mm,
HTMX for everything.
yeah,
Um, you live and you learn, right?
it's trade
Um,
offs.
yeah, but even the idea of like stream one is going to be setting up the foundation, getting everything connected. Step like stream two is going to be like I said, load testing and performance. I think we took that and we were like features, and we just did a bunch of features for it. And
Yeah.
then taking this and going like, what does the technical implementation look like? What are some of the things that we're going to be doing? How do we want things to connect? And just even request flows and integrations and like all of these setup notes and things that were going into place. um like I didn't even have to read all of this. I was just scrubbing through it and I was like, okay, cool, I see what it's doing, I see what
Hmm.
it's doing.
Hmm.
And then I said, all right, cool, we had 3 ideas. Idea one, idea two, like same thing, a little bit shorter, because I basically just said like, okay, I like this, I like this, I like this, add these.
Yeah.
And then like, all right, and then idea three, kind of the same thing. And it was it was so easy for us to decide this, and like all of this was just generated through just prompting.
Yeah.
But then the other side of that was then going and saying, okay, here's a copy of the plan. Here's what we
Yes.
want to do. Let's go ahead and drive into that. Like, let's go
Yeah.
ahead and like just start building that.
Yeah.
That was
And also like tell me which one works better.
yeah. Compare these two design ideas. I did something similar with another project for like a Secret Santa thing, and it was like, hey, we're going to build this Secret Santa thing. I've got two ideas. Can you explain to me the pros and cons of each? And letting it do the comparison to me was just fantastic. But yeah, as we wrap up,
Uh-oh.
like
The sound
sound cut out again.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I can't hear you, but
we've been fighting with all
it's
the
like as
technical
soon as you stop sharing,
difficulties.
that's when it did that.
Yep, I was gonna say, and with that, I think that we're gonna probably start wrapping up.
Now,
can you hear me now?
yes, I can hear you. Perfect.
There we go.
Okay.
StreamYard has been testing us today. We've had
Literally.
a couple of disconnects.
Literally. But you know what? I love the fact that we're able to like use that. Like I was like, hey, like, we have this plan. What will this look like as like a demo? You know what? What do you think about the conversation of, because I know that prompting is about providing the model with as much, or the LLM with as much information as possible so that it can really make an informed decision. But what do you feel about the conversation of, some experts saying, how can I put this, that like, how can we get LLMs to the point where they can understand and learn with as little information as possible? In the same way, like us humans, when we are older, like when we're younger, we have less information, right? We're kind of like getting things as we go, and so like, for instance, toddlers, like they're learning how to talk. They're learning all these things along the way, even sort of like, I guess, with not having as much information. So yeah, what do you feel about that conversation, like getting to that point?
I want to be like as lenient on like AI models as I think is necessary.
Mhm.
This is like the conversation of like self-driving cars. Self-driving cars deal with a lot of information, they deal with a lot of context, and they are, for their scale, inherently like 100 times safer than humans driving. That does not matter, because what happens is when a mistake happens, we tend to give ourselves more credit than we would give a machine. So we would say, like, if I was driving, I wouldn't have gotten into that accident, or I wouldn't have made that decision. And like, it's like, okay, you might not have, but again, looking at the crash records, there are thousands of crashes every day that involve two humans. There are less than 100 crashes every year that involve, self-driving vehicles. And so it's like, it's kind of hard to look at that. So when I think about like coding agents and things like that, saying how, like, I don't need to give it as much detail, I think what that is similar to saying is that we believe that we don't need that much information, which I can tell you as an open source maintainer, anytime I see an issue and it's just like, this doesn't work, it's like, well, what do you mean? I need all the information possible on what this doesn't work means. So I definitely think that where we are now is definitely better than where we were 2-3 years ago. I mean, the fact that literally,
For sure.
I think we like said build this theme from scratch in the beginning, and the design wasn't shades of purple, it wasn't gradients well, a little bit of gradients, but like it wasn't like AI's first tailwind design. is proof that things are improving.
Yeah.
But I think that we naturally take a lot of context, we take a lot of our desires, our thoughts, and our opinions, and
Hmm.
we internally think about those things as we're building stuff. And if I just started writing code and you told me, oh hey, build this out, and I just started writing the code, you would
Hmm.
probably ask me why I'm making some of the decisions that I'm making.
Yeah.
I think the problem is that we get a little like frustrated because we know in our heads what we want to see, and
Yeah.
AI is not a mind reader. So it's very much
Yet.
like it
No,
can't
just
do
kidding. I
that.
said yet because I'm like,
Oh
some of the
no.
things that they're like talking about, I'm like, whoa, are they gonna be reading our thoughts? I mean, part of me is sort of thinking that might be already happening, because I could say something next to my phone and I'm like, or not say, I can think something next to my phone and I'm getting ads. But
It's like
anyway,
popping up.
it's like popping up. But yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense, because
Yeah.
I guess as humans, we're already sort of doing that. We're already sort of providing, or we have this information, in our
Yeah.
head that is informing our decisions. And to require AI as like a way of to innovate or to evolve is to be able to make decisions with less information. I think that's a conversation. I kind of lean more towards giving it more information, because I don't want to have to keep like
Yeah.
reprompting, you
I
know what I
don't have
mean?
to
So
keep telling you.
I don't want to have to, I don't like repeating myself. That's just in life. I'm like, I am a very, people will tell me or tell you, I can be very thorough at times in ways that make sense, but thorough because I'm like, I would rather you have all the information you need instead of like we have 15 conversation about the same thing. So yeah.
I think that's where like the using AI to develop a plan comes in handy,
Hmm.
because then like
Yes, start
again,
with a plan.
I love the idea of like I'm not a designer. I can tell you what ugly looks like. So like that's fine, but I
Yeah.
can't, like in terms of designing this dashboard, I could
Hmm.
not tell you what the best way to work with it was. And honestly, when we were done, we recorded that second stream. The thing that I did was I actually sent a screenshot of the page to a UX designer and
Mm.
said like, hey, how would you improve on this? And let them
Yeah.
go, well, this would do this, and change the color schemes here. Like, it's good that you did this, but also it's a little distracting. Like, it was interesting to see how they thought about the problem, where for me it
Hmm.
was, I just want buttons on a screen and I want it to feel somewhat modern. And if we can
Yeah.
do that, then great.
Yes.
um but I think that like one of the things that I've been doing, shout out to Leticia Avro, who I sat in a workshop from her, and she taught me
Hmm.
like the Mirais database planning method, or like project planning method.
Hmm.
And Mirais is like this tool that's used it's like actually taught in schools in like France and Paris and stuff.
Hmm.
And the nice thing
Wow.
about it is it does encapsulate the, I am building a solution. That solution has this many things involved in it,
Hmm.
and here's what it looks like from an executive like description standpoint of like, let's roll this out with these features, these
Hmm.
scenarios. And then the next step is like, okay, now the technical implementation looks like this is how your
Hmm.
database would be set up, here are all the different relationships that need to be made. And then you start going into the implementation details. But
Hmm.
the other thing that I want to do with that, and this is where like I feel like agents are both good and bad, is like, okay, I want a UX and a UI agent. I want
Hmm.
agents that are good at the things that I'm bad at,
Yeah.
to tell me what I should and shouldn't be doing in this rollout. I bet if we gave AI a Mirais project detail that says, here's what the structure looks like, here's what the implementation looks like, here's the color scheme that we want to use,
Yeah.
here's like the design language that we want to use, and we save that as a PDF in our project and say, read this document and then implement like a 5-step plan, including an MVP, additional features, advanced features, and then final
Yeah.
implementation rollout.
Yeah.
I'm almost certain that it will work way better than just, hey, build this. But
Yeah.
again, you have to be in the mindset of I'm going to spend half of my daily limit on tokens just updating the PDF
Yeah. Yeah.
and not
No,
actually writing
that
the
makes
code.
sense. Yeah. That makes sense. What I like when this conversation comes up is I have always sort of thought of AI as like this co-intelligence. It should be a replacement for, or it can't be necessarily a replacement for intelligence. It's like we're working together to solve this, right? It's not a replacement for creativity. It's like it's those moments where, hey, if you need to get unstuck, you're saying, okay, I have these two ideas, or this is my plan, or this is my idea. Like, can you defend, or can you argue against this, right? Or
Yeah.
probe me on some questions that's going to get me really thinking about how I want to structure this. So that's why I really think of it as this co-intelligence.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all I can say to that is I'm glad that uh, we had two very different angles at approaching this project,
Yeah,
but they worked really well together.
they
Any
did.
any last thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I wouldn't mind building something else,
That's the goal.
Definitely.
Like that's the
We
that's the goal in
Yeah,
doing this.
yeah.
In that case, I will share because I'm not supposed to talk about Ivan stuff, but in the last minute, I will talk about the Ivan stuff because you mentioned wanting to build something.
Yeah.
Um, we just launched free Kafka, free tier Kafka, like Kafka but free though. So
Oh, okay.
if you want to do some event streaming, we also just launched our gift to developers. Our developer tier of Postgres is $5.
Stop. Okay.
Like run a Postgres database for $5 in the cloud. There you go.
I
That's what we're
pay more for
doing.
my Netflix account. Actually, let me take that
Exactly.
back. I use somebody else's, but
I was
still.
gonna say if you haven't found somebody's Netflix account that you can use, like
Right.
$5 is great. My entire like I moved a bunch of my databases in my home lab to the cloud, and I think it's like $20 a month for like
Wow.
four different database service, four different Postgres databases. But I say all of that because right now there's a competition, and I will have to go grab the link. If
Okay.
you build
Yes.
something
Hmm.
using the free tier Kafka, we're currently running a contest for until the end of January that is a $5,000 cash prize. So $5,000, not in credits, not in anything else, in
Hmm.
cash, um, where you can come in and build something and just get some money off of it. So build stuff, build what you think is cool. They just announced we got an internal competition as well, and I was like, my day job is building stuff. I'm pretty sure that I am exempt from this because I found the limit of how many free services we get as employees the other day. It was like you can't add anymore. I was like, oh, my bad. Um, but yeah, if you're building stuff, I just put the link in the comments.
Yeah.
Um, Again, why not get paid to build something? Build something cool. Build something that's going to help you out.
Right.
I don't know if I'm a judge or not, but I'm gonna try to be. And I'm
Okay.
encouraging as many people as I can to just
Yeah.
just build and have fun building, and that's really what
Yeah.
this podcast, whatever you want to call it, is all about, is working with people who
Yeah.
understand that it's just fun to build stuff and
Yeah.
learn stuff
This
in the
makes me want to
process.
build. This makes me want to build more in community for sure. Like building it, one thing on your laptop and it's just you by yourself. I can tend to do that and sort of be in my head, but building in community is something that I think I need more of that. I think that would be really great.
Yeah, I'm also going to put in there a link to this dashboard. Um, Play around with it, build stuff off of it. I would love to see more people do stuff with that. And if you see where we made mistakes, submit a pull request and we'll fix it. But that's going to do it for us. This has been Elephant in the Room. Again, my guest, Alexis Roberson. Thank you so much, Alexis,
Of
for
course.
hanging out with me. We've been hanging out for like 3 weeks of just like planning
This
and
part.
building. It was a whirlwind, but it was a ton of fun.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me. This was really great. I really enjoyed this for sure.
And of course, follow Alexis on social media and LinkedIn and all that other good stuff. And maybe she'll start streaming. I don't know. We'll have to see. Let's see
We'll
what
see.
happens.
We'll see. We'll see. Let's get through Christmas.
All right. Well, that's gonna do it for this episode. I'm Jay Miller, and my guest has been Alexis Roberson of LaunchDarkly, and this has been Elephant in the Room. Until next time, see you later.
All right.